I saw you were doing some projects up in the mountains, right? You were going around installing solar panels for disadvantaged kids and mining, Bitcoin mining equipments. How did that came about?
So that's a great question. Well, we first started having the English teachers locally close to the city, and the one community we wanted to help happened to be far away in the Omgoi Mountains, like an hour and a half further up in Nakian. And when we got up there, we're like, wow, there's almost 100 children up here. This is a very special place. But they were pretty much off-grid. There's a school about 1 kilometer away. So we recognized the need for them to have some type of nutrition. And we decided that, hey, maybe if we could build like an off-grid solar system, something small, we could get refrigeration and a freezer so we can help them store proteins and vegetables to have nutrition, because they're really just eating rice and they're really far off of the grid. So we ended up doing that, and we recognized that they were only really using maybe 20% of the solar system that we had installed. And that's when I went and spoke to our friends at Bob Space here in Bangkok, and was like, hey, is it possible to run some miners off of this extra energy? And they're like, yeah, let's go up there and check it out. So with Bob Space having residence program where they have developers come each quarter and work at Bob Space, a few of them came up to do a site assessment to check out the site. And we went with one gentleman from Korea and a gentleman from Italy, a few of the guys from Bob Space, Canadian Dan, Piccolo went up there the first time, and we checked out the site, and they said, well, yeah, we could definitely hook up 2 miners. We said, this is great. Let's go back up there and do it. Well, this was rainy season, and it was very difficult to get up there. It's about a 60-kilometer hike up on a 4-wheel drive vehicle, but the roads are really, really difficult. A lot of these children don't come down for years. So we had tried to go back up there. The road collapsed, so we had to wait 3 months. And finally, we got back up there. We went up. Captain Sid had come up. Jan from Bob Space came up, and a few others. And that was when we said, okay, we're going to try to install this. And at the time, I didn't know much about Bitcoin mining. I mean, I'm very familiar with it, but I didn't think anything of it. And we got in this little kind of a hut, a cement kind of hut right outside of the church area of the compound. And Captain Sid was putting together the router to try to connect to this little line of internet that we had up there. And Jan was trying to hook things up, and all of a sudden, Captain Sid was like, he got us online, and we were like mining, and he's telling us, like, he's showing how it's all working, and he's talking to Piccolo back at base, and like they're figuring this out, and the weather's all crazy, and it's dusty, and it's crazy, and we're like, what are we doing? So, but what happened, what was fascinating was when he connected, he's like, we're mining right now. These 2 miners are mining 40,000 sats per month if the system stays fully going. Like, let's just say that it's on full battery, so it wouldn't do that if it goes off at night. And at that moment, it was...
So that's about 1,000 baht.
Yeah.
At the current exchange rate.
At that, this is pre-halving, yeah. So it was a little bit lower. But it wasn't the modest amount of sats that we were really generating. It was like, all of a sudden I recognized, whoa, we've got a children's home 5 hours away from Chiang Mai in the middle of the jungle on the top of this really far away mountain. And now these children are connected to the Bitcoin network. Like, that was super cool. And I was like, so we should like tell somebody on Twitter this. And so we mentioned on X, Twitter, what we had just done, like literally from up there. And that same day, we got the donations that were sent directly to the address of the miner that was equivalent to 1 full year of mining those sats at that orphanage. So it was like, this is super cool. So it was more of a signal, like I would say, like I explain it to people, like a digital signal, like a kind of like a bat signal, like digital signal or a digital mailbox that people were able to contribute directly to a children's home directly. No Visa, American Express, MasterCard, no middleman. And that was very empowering. So it's not like a mining operation, it's just that we had connected the miners on the mountain.
And how is it still running?
So as you know, it's still rainy season.
Uh-huh.
So what we did was we had taken the miners down to Omgoi City, and the tribe we support is the Karen Hill tribe, and there's this specific Karen for Christ Hill tribe supports 40 villages. So we went down to their headquarters that's on grid, and we're like, hey, let's put these miners in here. So because it's raining out. And we put them in and we hooked them up on grid. Now we know that it's not cost effective to really mine on grid, especially if there's no negotiation with the energy producer. But we also knew that generous people wanted to donate to this project. So it just made sense. After the first 5 days of running for 24 hours a day, one of the board members at the Karen for Christ Hill tribe thought that this was like too good to be true. Like, how did we just get 5,000 baht? And again, it goes back to education and so we didn't want to cause friction within the community. We ended up pulling down the miner and going back to education. So it was kind of like everybody was on board, but somebody said something has to be fishy here because why are people sending us money?
They're not used to it.
No, they're definitely
This
not.
is like the thing you see in Bitcoin community, right? I remember Tucker giving his presentation just earlier, and he said that harder money makes people more generous, and we see that all over. We see projects around here. We have a Geyser Fund going on, a Geyser Grant going on today, and people donating money to the projects they like just because they like it, and people are voting with their money, and that really counts. But yeah, as you say, sometimes people are just not used to this kind of model, right? So I take it right now you're reconsidering your plans for that. Is it going to continue? Are you going to expand on it?
Sure. So great question. Underneath this hill tribe, there's a displaced community in a village called Doi Tao, and in Doi Tao, the government had built a dam. And the dam displaced all of their cattle and all of their land. So they decided they're going to give them a fully off-grid, I think it's like 50 or 75 kilowatt off-grid solar system. And it's under the umbrella of who we support. We visited the site before. So this time we're going to go up there and really mine sats. We're going to introduce it. Again, everything's very... Up there, everything's a challenge when you go to these places. So we're going to try to implement what we're doing on a larger scale, because the first time we had donated 5 kilowatts of energy, but this place has 10 or 20 times the amount. So we're really excited to go up there. Again, I want to do a site visit with, I'll team up with Bob Space. They have a cohort coming on that's Bitcoin mining. I'm going to time that perfectly however Piccolo thinks is appropriate, because I think that would be a really exciting experience for them as well. Plus, they're very much more technical than I am. So that's one of the things that we're going to continue on that mission. A second thing, which is really cool, if you don't mind, is so how else could we implement the Bitcoin into these hill tribes and these orphanages, or better said, children's homes. So as Tip was just mentioning a few minutes ago, Nostr is the way. These kids have phones, whether they have a living uncle or a living aunt, I would say 70% of the kids have phones. And these villages are on the fringe of society. So inflation affects them the most, because what happens is they can't get a second job. They have to use what they have. And this is an opportunity for them as they create content. like they do on TikTok. Like you could follow some of their accounts and they just do kid stuff. But now, if we could introduce Noster to them, this might be a really cool opportunity to take the most disadvantaged communities and connect them directly to the Bitcoin network.